Imagine this. You've been running for years, pouring yourself into something you were told mattered. Every morning, you wake before the sun touches the horizon. You skip meals, sacrifice, sleep, abandon relationships, all in pursuit of what they promised would be yours if you simply worked hard enough. Your body aches, your mind races even in stillness. You wear exhaustion like armor, believing that somewhere, somehow, someone is keeping score, that your suffering will be rewarded, that the universe operates like a fair accountant, tallying your hours, measuring your pain, preparing your compensation. But then one day, something cracks open inside you, not dramatically, not with fanfare or revelation, just a quiet, unsettling thought that arrives uninvited. What if none of this matters the way I thought it did? Imagine discovering that the most powerful individuals in history did not rise simply because of how hard they worked, but because they understood something far more profound about human nature, perception, influence, and timing. In this video, I promise to reveal what society rarely admits about success and power, and the last revelation will be the most important and powerful of them all. Before we go any further, pause for just a moment and subscribe to this channel. Leave a like, comment your thoughts, and share this video with someone who is searching for more than superficial answers. What you are about to hear has the potential to change the way you see effort, ambition, and the invisible rules that govern the world around you. Hard work has been romanticized as the ultimate virtue. It is praised in classrooms, corporate speeches, motivational books, and family conversations. People wear exhaustion like a medal of honor, celebrating their busyness as if it were proof of importance. Yet look around and notice something unsettling. The hardest working people, the ones who never complain, who show up no matter what, who give everything they have, remain exactly where they've always been, struggling, invisible, replaceable. Meanwhile, those who rose to positions of influence, wealth, and power don't look tired. They don't boast about sleepless nights or celebrate their exhaustion. They move with ease, speak with calm authority, and seem to operate under entirely different laws than the ones you've been following. This realization doesn't arrive as comfort. It arrives as betrayal. Because if hard work isn't the key to success, then what was all that suffering for? If effort alone doesn't determine who rises and who remains unseen, then what invisible rules have been governing your life without your knowledge? And more terrifyingly, who benefits from your belief in this illusion? Consider the paradox before you now. Entire civilizations have been built on the glorification of labor. From ancient empires to modern corporations, the message has been hammered into human consciousness with religious intensity. Work harder, sacrifice more, never stop pushing. This narrative isn't just taught, it's woven into identity itself. To question it feels almost blasphemous, like doubting gravity or questioning whether the sun will rise. Yet history tells a different story. The most powerful figures who ever lived, the ones who shaped nations, rewrote laws, controlled resources, and bent reality to their will, they understood something the masses never grasped. They recognized that while society celebrates hard work in speeches and monuments, it reserves actual power for those who understand perception, timing, psychology, and the invisible architecture of influence. Niccolò Machiavelli saw this truth with brutal clarity 5 centuries ago. While Renaissance Italy praised virtue and piety, he observed what actually determined who ruled and who served. He studied princes who never lifted a sword yet commanded armies. He analyzed advisors whose whispered words carried more weight than 1,000 laborers' combined effort. He documented how empires rose and fell, not through muscle, but through strategic awareness, the ability to read human nature, anticipate behavior, and position oneself at the center of power's invisible web. This wasn't cynicism. This was observation stripped of comforting delusions. And the most unsettling part? His conclusions remain just as true today, perhaps even more so, because modern society has perfected the art of disguising control as opportunity, compliance as virtue, and exhaustion as achievement. Right now, in this very moment, you stand at a threshold. Behind you lies everything you've been conditioned to believe about success, worth, and the relationship between effort and reward. Ahead lies something far more dangerous and far more liberating. The recognition that the rules you've been following were never designed to elevate you. They were designed to direct you, to keep you moving without questioning. to keep you exhausted so you never develop the clarity to see who's actually steering the ship. The question is no longer whether hard work matters. The question is, what was it distracting you from discovering? What mechanisms of power remain invisible when your hands are too busy to grasp them? What truths about human psychology, influence, and control can only be seen when you stop running long enough to observe? And most crucially, who becomes dangerous when they finally understand that the game was never about effort at all? This isn't motivation. This isn't inspiration designed to make you work even harder with renewed enthusiasm. This is something far more radical, an invitation to dismantle the most fundamental assumption that has governed your entire existence. Because once you see through this illusion, you cannot unsee it. And what comes after that recognition will either liberate you or terrify you into retreat. The choice, for perhaps the first time in your life, is genuinely yours. The illusion didn't begin with you. It began centuries before your birth, carefully constructed and reinforced through generations until it became indistinguishable from truth itself. The belief that hard work equals success isn't simply a motivational platitude. It's a psychological mechanism of control, so elegant that those trapped within it defend it passionately, even as it drains them of everything they have. Carl Jung understood this with penetrating clarity when he warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This single statement dismantles the entire mythology of effort-based success. Because if your mind operates on programming you never consciously chose, then whose goals are you actually pursuing? Whose definition of success are you chasing? Whose voice echoes in your head when you feel guilty for resting? The uncomfortable truth is that most people never question the source of their ambitions. They inherit them, from parents who inherited them from their parents, from teachers who were taught to teach compliance, from a culture that requires masses of people to believe that their exhaustion serves a noble purpose. This inheritance operates beneath conscious awareness, which is precisely what makes it so effective. Friedrich Nietzsche recognized this mechanism when he wrote about the herd mentality, the unconscious adoption of values that serve the collective stability rather than the individual's authentic development. Society doesn't need you to be powerful. It needs you to be functional. It needs you to show up, perform your role, and believe that your participation matters in ways that keep you invested but never truly free. This is why hard work is glorified, while strategic thinking is often viewed with suspicion. A person focused entirely on tasks doesn't have the mental bandwidth to question the system generating those tasks. A person measuring worth through exhaustion will never ask whether the destination justifies the journey. A person conditioned to equate busyness with importance will voluntarily surrender the very thing that could liberate them. Time to think. Jean-Paul Sartre called this bad faith, living inauthentically by adopting roles and beliefs that allow us to escape the terrifying responsibility of genuine freedom. It's easier to say, "I must work hard because that's what good people do," than to confront the question, "What would I choose if I weren't afraid of what others might think?" The psychological roots go even deeper. From childhood, you were trained through a sophisticated system of rewards and punishments to associate your value with productivity. Good grades for completed assignments, praise for obedience, approval for meeting expectations that were never yours to begin with. Slowly, imperceptibly, your sense of self became entangled with external validation, and external validation always comes with strings attached. Arthur Schopenhauer observed that most people are driven not by conscious choice, but by unconscious will-blind forces that push them through life like waves carrying debris. Without awareness, you become a vessel for inherited patterns, cultural narratives, and fears you never named. Your hard work isn't heroic in this context. It's automatic, mechanical, a response so deeply programmed that it feels like identity itself. This is the hidden problem. The illusion of hard work doesn't just waste your time and energy. It colonizes your very sense of who you are. It convinces you that your worth is measured by how much you can endure, how much you can sacrifice, how thoroughly you can disappear into obligation. And the most insidious part? It makes you feel virtuous while doing so. You've been taught to admire the prisoner who polishes their chains rather than the one who studies the lock. And until you recognize this conditioning for what it is, a system designed to extract maximum output while providing minimum awareness, you'll remain trapped in a cycle that benefits everyone except you. The question isn't whether you've been working hard enough. The question is, Who decided what you should be working toward? And why did you never think to ask? The consequences of this illusion don't announce themselves. They accumulate silently, invisibly, reshaping your life in ways you mistake for normalcy. You don't wake up one day and realize you've been deceived. Instead, you wake up decades later wondering why everything feels hollow despite doing everything right. Why success, when it arrives, tastes like ash. Why the finish line keeps moving no matter how fast you run. This is the quiet devastation of unconscious labor. It doesn't destroy you dramatically. It erodes you systematically. Cognitive psychology reveals something unsettling about human perception. We suffer from what's called confirmation bias, the tendency to seek information that validates existing beliefs while ignoring evidence that contradicts them. When you've built your entire identity around being hardworking, your brain automatically filters reality to protect that identity. You notice every moment your effort is acknowledged. You ignore every instance where someone less deserving advances past you. You celebrate small wins as proof the system works, while dismissing massive inequalities as exceptions. This bias doesn't just distort your view of the world. It imprisons you within a narrative that grows tighter the longer you believe it. You become psychologically invested in the illusion because admitting it's false would mean confronting a terrifying possibility that years, perhaps decades, of your life were spent chasing a phantom. Daniel Kahneman's research on decision-making exposed how humans operate primarily through System 1 thinking, fast, automatic, unconscious processes that conserve mental energy but rarely lead to optimal outcomes. Most people aren't making deliberate choices about their lives. They're responding to triggers, following scripts, repeating patterns that were established before they developed the capacity for critical thought. Hard work in this context becomes just another automatic response, a reflex triggered by guilt, fear, or the need for social approval. Meanwhile, those who understand this exploit it masterfully. They recognize that exhausted people are controllable people, that busy people don't rebel, that workers focused on survival never develop the vision to reshape systems. The entire structure depends on masses of individuals genuinely believing their effort matters while remaining blind to who actually controls the levers of power. Cultural conditioning reinforces this blindness through carefully constructed mythologies. The self-made billionaire, who supposedly worked their way up from nothing, conveniently omitting the inherited wealth, strategic connections, and systemic advantages that actually enabled their rise. The American dream that promises anyone can succeed through determination alone, a narrative that serves the powerful by making poverty seem like a personal failure rather than a structural feature. These stories aren't just wrong, they're weaponized. They transform victims of systemic inequality into willing participants who blame themselves for outcomes they never truly controlled. You didn't fail because you didn't work hard enough. You failed because you were playing a game where the rules were hidden, the playing field was tilted, and the referees were working for the other team. The neurological impact is equally profound. Chronic stress from relentless effort floods your system with cortisol, literally shrinking the hippocampus, the brain region responsible for memory and learning. Your capacity for creative problem-solving diminishes. Your ability to think strategically atrophies. You become less capable of the very awareness that could free you, creating a self-perpetuating cycle of diminishment. Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps, observed that humans can endure almost any suffering if they believe it has meaning. The cruelest trick of the hard work illusion is that it provides just enough meaning to keep you engaged, while ensuring that meaning serves someone else's purpose. You suffer, but your suffering builds someone else's empire. You sacrifice, but your sacrifice funds someone else's luxury. You exhaust yourself, but your exhaustion powers a system designed to keep you exactly where you are. And perhaps most tragically, you defend this arrangement. You argue for it. You teach it to your children. Because admitting you've been deceived requires confronting a pain so deep that continued delusion feels like mercy. But delusion is never mercy. It's just a slower form of death. The rebellion doesn't begin with action. It begins with a single dangerous act. Observation, not judgment, not immediate change. Simply the willingness to see what you've been trained not to notice, to watch yourself as if you were a stranger, to ask questions that have no comfortable answers. Start here. For 1 week, track not what you accomplish, but why you chose to accomplish it. Whose voice approves when you work late? Whose disappointment do you fear when you rest? What specifically do you believe will happen if you stop performing at your current intensity? Write down the answers without editing them for palatability. The truth lives in the raw, unfiltered response. What you'll likely discover is that most of your effort serves ghosts, internalized voices of parents, teachers, peers, or cultural narratives that have been operating your life like a puppet master working invisible strings. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the painful separation of your authentic self from the collective conditioning that shaped you. It's not comfortable. It's necessary. Machiavelli never suggested laziness as an alternative to blind effort. He proposed something far more radical: strategic awareness. He studied how power actually moves through the world and discovered it follows patterns invisible to those focused solely on tasks. Power accumulates around those who understand perception, who control narratives, who position themselves at critical junctions of influence. These individuals don't work more, they work differently. They conserve energy while others burn out. They observe while others react. They create opportunities while others wait for permission. Consider the historical figures who genuinely transformed their circumstances. Benjamin Franklin didn't outwork his contemporaries, he outthought them, mastering skills that multiplied his influence. He understood that visibility, reputation, and strategic relationships created more opportunity than any amount of solitary labor. Leonardo da Vinci didn't exhaust himself completing commissions. He selectively chose projects that expanded his knowledge and positioned him among power brokers. He treated his attention as the most valuable resource he possessed. The shift from laborer to strategist requires reclaiming three things society trained you to surrender. Your time. Stop measuring days by how busy you were. Start measuring them by how conscious you were. A single hour of focused, strategic thinking creates more value than a week of reactive scrambling. Protect time for observation, reflection, and deliberate planning as fiercely as you currently protect work obligations. Your attention. Notice what captures your focus and ask whether it serves your genuine interests or someone else's agenda. The modern world is designed to fragment your attention into uselessness, social media, news cycles, manufactured urgencies. Those who control their attention control their destiny. Those who surrender it become fodder for systems they'll never understand. Your narrative. Stop allowing others to define what success means for you. The person who genuinely breaks free doesn't chase society's definition of achievement. They create their own. They stop seeking external validation and start building internal authority. This is terrifying because it means accepting full responsibility for your choices. No more blaming circumstances. No more hiding behind, "That's just how things are." The practical rebellion looks like this. Say no more than you say yes. Choose quality of effort over quantity. Study the mechanics of influence in your specific environment. Who makes decisions? How perception shapes outcomes? What invisible rules govern advancement? Read about psychology, persuasion, human behavior. Understand that while others are focused on tasks, you're studying the game itself. Aldous Huxley warned that people could be controlled not through overt force, but through their own desires and distractions. The rebellion is refusing to desire what you've been told to desire. Refusing to be distracted by busyness disguised as purpose. Refusing to mistake exhaustion for virtue. This isn't about working less. It's about waking up. And once awake, you can never again pretend the old rules were real. Now we arrive at the deepest layer. The truth that changes everything once you truly grasp it. The most powerful system controlling your life is not external, it's the one operating inside your own mind. All the governments, corporations, cultural institutions, and social hierarchies derive their power from a single source: your unconscious agreement to see reality through the lens they provided. This is the revelation that Machiavelli understood but rarely stated explicitly. Power doesn't ultimately rest in armies, wealth, or positions. It rests in perception. And perception is constructed, maintained, and reinforced through psychological mechanisms so subtle that most people live and die without recognizing they were never seeing reality. They were seeing an interpretation of reality designed to serve specific interests. Consider what this means. Every moment you believed your worth was measured by productivity, you were operating inside someone else's value system. Every time you felt guilty for resting, you were responding to conditioning implanted before you could defend against it. Every instance you equated exhaustion with virtue. You were repeating a script written by those who benefit from your depletion. The illusion of hard work was never about the work itself. It was about capturing your consciousness and directing it toward outcomes that serve the system while making you believe you were serving yourself. This is the most sophisticated form of control ever devised, making the controlled believe they are free, making the exploited believe they are valued, making the exhausted believe their suffering has noble purpose. But here's where everything inverts, where the darkest truth becomes the brightest possibility. If the primary system of control exists in your mind, then liberation also begins there. You don't need permission to change how you perceive reality. You don't need anyone's approval to question the narratives you've inherited. You don't need external circumstances to shift before you can reclaim authority over your own consciousness. This is what terrified rulers throughout history about truly awakened individuals. Not their capacity for violence or rebellion, their capacity for independent thought. A person who controls their own mind cannot be controlled by external forces. They become ungovernable, not through defiance, but through clarity. Friedrich Nietzsche spoke of the Übermensch, not a superhuman in physical terms, but a human who has overcome the inherited values of the herd and created their own meaning. This isn't arrogance. It's the ultimate responsibility. It's looking at every belief you hold and asking, is this actually true? Or is this what I was taught to believe is true? The difference between those two questions contains your entire freedom. Jean-Paul Sartre declared that existence precedes essence, meaning you are not born with a predetermined nature or purpose. You create it through choices. But most people never exercise this creative power. They accept the essence handed to them. Worker, consumer, taxpayer, role player in someone else's story. They spend their lives becoming a better version of what they were told to be, never asking whether that initial definition was legitimate. The final realization is this. Awareness is not just power, it is the power. Everything else is downstream. Wealth without awareness makes you a wealthy slave. Status without awareness makes you a decorated prisoner. Even freedom without awareness is just a larger cage you mistake for the world. When you truly understand this, several things happen simultaneously. You stop arguing with people still operating under the illusion, not because you're superior, but because you recognize they're defending their identity, not seeking truth. Arguing with someone's programming is as futile as arguing with a computer running predetermined code. You stop seeking validation from systems designed to keep you small. The corporate ladder, the social hierarchy, the competition for recognition, these aren't paths to power. They're containment strategies disguised as opportunities. Real power comes from building systems that serve your vision rather than climbing ladders in someone else's architecture. You stop measuring yourself by metrics that were designed to make you feel inadequate. The goal was never for you to win. The goal was to keep you playing, forever chasing, forever falling short, forever believing that just a bit more effort would finally be enough. Most importantly, you recognize that this awakening carries profound responsibility. You cannot unknow what you now know. You cannot return to the comfortable delusion that effort alone determines outcomes. You cannot pretend the rules are fair or that the game rewards virtue. You've seen behind the curtain, and that vision demands you live differently. This doesn't mean becoming cynical or withdrawn. It means becoming strategic, conscious, and sovereign over your own existence. It means understanding that while you cannot control every external circumstance, you can absolutely control the meaning you assign to those circumstances. And meaning how you interpret what happens determines everything. The ancient Stoics understood this. Epictetus, born a slave, discovered that even in chains, his mind remained his own. No one could force him to believe their narrative. No one could compel him to surrender his internal authority. External circumstances could limit his body, but his consciousness remained unconquerable. That recognition transformed him from slave to philosopher, from powerless to powerful, not because his circumstances changed, but because his relationship to those circumstances changed completely. This is the ultimate truth. You have been powerful all along. Not powerful in the sense society celebrates, not through domination or accumulation or achievement measured by external metrics. Powerful in the sense that matters most. Able to determine the meaning of your own existence. Able to question every inherited belief. Able to withdraw your energy from systems that drain you. Able to build a life based on conscious choice rather than unconscious programming. The world does not need more hard workers. It is drowning in people who work themselves to exhaustion while remaining unconscious of why they're doing it or who truly benefits. What the world desperately needs. What you need are individuals who wake up, who see clearly, who refuse to participate in their own exploitation, who understand that the ultimate rebellion is not violence or defiance, but consciousness itself. Machiavelli revealed that power flows to those who understand reality as it is, not as they wish it to be. The reality is this: your life, your energy, your consciousness, these have always been yours. But you've been convinced to lease them to systems that promised rewards while delivering just enough to keep you hoping, never enough to make you free. The choice before you now is the only choice that ever truly mattered. Will you continue operating under programming you never consciously chose? Or will you claim authority over your own mind and, through that authority, transform everything else? This is not the end of your journey. It is the first moment it genuinely begins. Not when you wake up earlier or work harder or sacrifice more, but when you wake up in the truest sense, when you see clearly, choose consciously, and build deliberately. Everything changes when you realize that the power was never out there. It was always within, waiting for you to stop searching and start seeing.